All right, looks like we're streaming to all the right places. We got a good episode up on tap with our favorite CEO, Refined Solutions. But first, we got to do a mic check.
Check the mic and make sure it sounds right, boys.
All right. It
Mic.
sounds right.
Check.
All right, we got a great show today with our favorite CEO, Refined Completions, Lloyd Brown. We call him Lloyd Downhole Brown. He knows more about the oil patch than Billy Bob Thornton for sure. Got a great title today. Lloyd, how you doing?
I, as usual, am all the good, Steve.
All right. So it looks like the topic today is why wells fail, the specifics of business, service, delivery model. Lloyd, why is this important?
Well, the specifics and the way we deliver our business models a little bit different. As a matter of fact, there's a reason there's not the name chemicals in refined completions, because the process of getting to a solution is not about the chemistry. It's about the rock. It's always about the geology. And we've had a long-standing motto that we trademark, that give the rock what it wants and it'll give you what you want. And that's been our focus, is know the geology, and then build a system that's going to help that geology give the performance characteristics, which is it's letting go of the oil and gas that resides in it, so we can have excellent production over a longer life of the well. And so that's why it's important.
So these businesses, these companies that are producing or wanting to produce these wells, they have a whole business model. They're trying to reduce risk. They're trying to do the best on behalf of their stakeholders. And this part is sort of a guess, that what's happening down hole, what's, what do we put down there? And it used to be a guess. And there's this little villain in the story of the snake oil chemical salespeople. And that's kind of the fly in the ointment on this process. And what folks may not understand or may not know about the refined way is that you have a way to predict, to actually figure out what's the unique formula for this formation and this geology. Well, that comes from a lot of work in the past, right? It's not just something you made up the other day.
That is correct. It's the culmination of not only the lessons that we've learned, but it's standing on the shoulders of those that came before us. And there's a lot of scientists that have provided an understanding and a knowledge. And, we're standing on their shoulders, and hopefully the next generation that comes along will be able to say that they're standing on the shoulders of the things that we have brought to the understanding as we're living a life pursuing excellence. There's nothing about, there's no such thing as perfection, but it's the slow, steady, incremental understanding of why there have been failures, why there have been things that are not consistent. And I think one of the most important things that we like the community that we work with to understand is, first and foremost, if what you're doing in a laboratory is not predicting and the results that you see in the field, then you have something that really is not, it's not doing anything other than saying, yes, in this specific test, this chemical component or chemistry works in this environment. But if you're not doing something in your process that really is first providing a prediction, but then secondarily, you're hitting within a very tight bandwidth of what you predicted is what you see. And that has been something that's driven myself and my business partner, Jeff Snyder, has always been what you see in the laboratory and whatever models that you're using and testing protocols, are they really good indicators and predictors of the success that you see in the well? And that's where really the snake oil comes from, or silver bullet, or whatever you want to call it. Trying to provide one single solution for a variety of geologies really is malpractice, because you're treating everybody the same. For example, you've got a perfectly shaped head, and therefore you don't need a lot of hair. But me, I have a little bit left up there because my wife says it's not such a good thing to go hairless. But the fact where I'm going is the uniqueness that we all have. The geology, depending on its location, is very unique. And if you don't understand the specific characteristics that that area, or what you're able to see in the wellbore through doing analytics all along the wellbore, and understanding the profile of the geology that you're going in to extract this resource, you really have to have a process. So what's really unique and different is we want everybody to see what we see as we go through the process. So our testing protocols are very transparent. And then secondarily is we're going to provide a recommendation that says this is a prescription for this, and this is what we expect to see. And so when the wells come on, is what we predicted within a level of tolerance of accuracy of what the well's doing? Is the hydrocarbon producing what we predicted? The types of hydrocarbon. Is it more gassy? Is it more liquid rich? Are there asphaltenes? Are there paraffins? Are there different components that are creating better production or impeding our production? What are the other components of what does the water look like when it's coming back? And are there indicators within it? You know, I just got my blood work back from my age management doc, and we were texting back and forth the results. And, you know, that's something that his process he's done with me over the last 11 years. He said, hey, these are areas that your blood says we need to work on. And we had a progressive learning of how I responded to different therapeutics, mineral components, dietary components. And, you know, he's like, hey, man, everything looks really good. This is the best your stress hormones have looked. This is the best. All of these indicators have looked lowest overall bad cholesterol, even though my total cholesterol is really in an upper area. It's all good cholesterol. It's all the things that we want to have in our diet. Well, wells will tell us the same thing, and they're all unique. But the one common thing is we have a known in the water that we put in that well, and we have a known from our analytics of what we should expect coming out of the rock. And how much, what are the quantities, what are the types? And so our process is so much different, is we're predicting what we're going to see versus here, use this and your well is going to be better. Well, how do you know? Well, we've run a couple of tests and we just know. Sometimes you're going to be right, and sometimes you're going to be not as much right. We're not in the business of putting at risk the customer's capital and their promises that they're making to their investment partners. whether they're publicly traded or privately held. Everybody has partners in these wells, and we want to be a long-term partner, not a vendor. A vendor just quotes you a price and says, this works. Why does it work? Because my guys tell me it works. You know, just like you and I are going through this process, we're doing the exact same thing with our team to help them understand. So I think, Steve, what we're doing is we're more about teaching and also just being very forthright and looking at the data that we're generating with our customers and seeing if they see anything different. We learn so much because they have some different perspectives, right? And that's what we want to do. We want to have conversations, and we want to practice discernment with our customers instead of coming in and just going, hey, this is what you got to do. Just trust us.
So
our process is, hey, this is what we've done. Trust the process, not just our word from the standpoint that this is the right thing.
So we're moving from a way that used to be that you would just take this unique formula that was made for all use cases, pour it down whole, and you said this should work. Let's see. And now we're moving to, hey, let's audit this, because from that audit, we're going to know what we will see. We're going to be able to predict what we see. So we're moving from let's see to, if we go this way, this is what we will see.
Yeah, well, and I want to be a little bit kind to what we've done in the past as an industry. We do what we know and we do what we believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have certain beliefs that have led us to a place, and but what we have to do is say, hey, does our belief give us what we believed it would? And if the answer is no, then we've got to ask ourselves why. And so, I have not been a person that loved process. I'll just be quite frank with you. It's been something that I avoided because it's slow. And I used to like to really move fast. But what I love about our processes is if something doesn't perform in the manner that we believe based on what we looked at, now we have, because we put a process in place and we have a way to measure not only the production, but what are the other constituents that are coming out of the well in the water, and many times in the oil. What are its characteristics? Were we correct, or did we miss the mark? And then if the mark was missed, did we have bad data going in? Did we have bad process? Without either one of those, you can't go back and effectively do a failure analysis, because you're guessing at that point. So that's why we've really been so diligent in creating a predictable process that provides prescriptive ways of treating these wells, and they don't all look the same because the components and characteristics, just like last week we were meeting with the customer, predominantly they use produced water, and produced water provides real benefit to the geology almost universally. Well, there was a problem delivering recycled produced water, and they were making a pivot to fresh water. Well, we had to change our prescription because a constant that we had changed. So we were losing what I call free chemistry in the source of produced water, and we had to make some changes to our prescription to make up for what we were missing. Just like why I take, omega oils that provide that, because I used to miss those. I did not have them, was not a big fish eater, never had them in my diet. And it's my mom's fault.
She wasn't a good cook as far as fish.
Well, she was a phenomenal cook, but she didn't know that there was fresh fish versus canned salmon.
Right.
man, she ruined me. I would not eat salmon forever because it was put in a patty, and you couldn't kill it with enough ketchup and cocktail sauce, right? It was just horrible. And so, but again, I was missing something because I had a disposition not to like it. Well, the same thing happens with what we do, with beliefs that come from something that we learned that wasn't applicable to what we're doing today. You know what's really funny is I used to not be able to eat salmon, but ever since I've started doing these omega rich these supplements, and those there's balance in my blood work, I can eat it and I love it. Now, I still don't like bad fish, right? Not fresh, but I can eat salmon all day long. And so the same thing comes to when we're looking at what we do in an oil and gas well. We need to make sure that our prejudice doesn't come from something that's not applicable today.
We used to call it salmon.
Oh, no, that's West Texas. Salmon.
So
how do you say wash or W-A-S-H?
Well, my granddad used to say wash.
Wash, that was my mom too. Wash, squash, you know, I'm like, what is squash? And again, isn't that funny?
So from the first conversation to the full field implementation, walk us through that refined way, what it actually looks like.
Well, first and foremost, it's helping everybody understand where we're coming from. And that again goes back to the belief that we're starting at equilibrium with our geology. And then what we like to do is if we can get drill cuttings and or samples of the geology, whether it's in core, and at the least is understanding the area that we're working in, because we have a massive database. We want to learn as much as we can about where our customers' operations are, what the target geology is, what the source water is, and we want to then take samples, do the analytical work that we do, and then come back and meet with our customer and say, hey, here's what we see. Does this match with your understanding? Because you've owned it. You've probably done some of these companies, the amount of science they've done is immense, and they know more than we know. This is not about knowing it all, but this is about shared learning. And how can we take what they know, what we're looking at, apply our process to it, and then make a prediction of what the mechanisms of failure that disruption causes, and then what are the prescriptive measures of what to do and not to do, not only chemistry, but also in the completion process, and then predicting this is what our outcome looks like. And so that's the difference of what we do. It takes time. I mean, we have to get usually drill cuttings to do that, source water from the area that we're going to complete with, and then it takes laboratory bench time. And generally speaking, once we get the samples, if we have to clean them, or if they've already been prepared by a mud logger, for example, the process, cleaning samples and getting them where they can be cleaned to a point that we can learn from them, that takes anywhere between three days to a full week, and then another week to run our protocols. And so usually within 3 weeks to a month, we're ready to come back with what we've learned, and then walk through that and make a prediction and a prescription and recommendation.
So we have an extended period of time that's usually not been a part of this process. So obviously there is a trade-off there. Hey, we need a little extra time to get clarity on what we're dealing with here and how we would address it based on these predictions. But what's the payoff down long term on this? What's it look like if we're able to go through the specific process? It's a business process, just
Mhm.
every other business process. What's the payoff?
Say that again. What is fail?
No, what's the payoff? What
Oh,
so
Well, the payoff is um, better initial productions. However, they come later in the life cycle of the well than really early. So one of the payoffs is that you get your water back first. And we know that that historically is what does the damage to the rock. So we want to get it off. And our process is about preservation of the geology to a point that it allows us to get more hydrocarbon over a longer period of time. So preserve the rock, get more water off early, and then watch a slower increase to the top initial production, and then secondarily have a much slower decline curve over that life of the well. That's an indicator that we were successful. Some of the visual indicators are during flowback, little to no sand being returned, little to no emulsions. As a matter of fact, if we see any emulsions, that means that there was a problem in our process, and we're creating something that should not be seen as the well's being produced in its early stages. We shouldn't see CO2 and H2S coming back. In addition, there would be no bacteria. Our process, if followed, our wells are going to be bacteria free. And then the next part of that is we're monitoring that water, because that water is telling us, did we do a good job of preservation? And once we start seeing a transition in that water from what we fracked with, even if it's recycled produced water, then to what is the real reservoir water, and did we preserve it in the manner that the laboratory said we were going to, that was then going to give us the payout. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we're reducing some penalties as far as the hydrocarbons and the rusting. What's the
corrosion and scale.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a cost. That's
a benefit of the process. It keeps the wells from being corrosive and producing scales. Yes.
And then the long-term payoff is that you have an extended reduction of the curve, the downturn.
Decline curve. That's correct.
Right? So over time, this well's producing more for longer.
Correct.
So the payoff from a couple of extra weeks, three weeks maybe.
Yeah. So there's a cost.
Yeah.
And it's not instantly gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting with our financial partner, they bank a lot of oil and gas operators. And so we're explaining to them what we're doing, and they're like, so you're telling me that my customers that you want me to introduce you to, they're going to have to wait 10 days to as much as 20 days for any oil to show? He goes, we're all going to be panicking.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, because you're preconditioned to believe that is an indicator of a good well. But in our process, we know the more water we see early with less hydrocarbon, the more oil we produce. And the beautiful part is we know what's in the rock. We know it's there. We've done the work to know that it's there. But are we doing the right thing to patiently get it out of the well bore? There was a season, Steve, when this acreage, and I call it dumb money, was coming in. You had all these folks coming in from New York City, and they were not educated. They were wanting to flip acreage all the time. and they were doing it based on a financial model that was looking at the initial production of the well. And the faster it got to that IP and the bigger that number was, they were able to sell that acreage so fast that they never saw the penalty that was coming downhill. Whoever bought it got that manure sandwich.
Mhm.
But today, in a world that we're much more fiscally disciplined, and that people are buying and holding longer, and they are acquiring operators, those that have better practices are being more capital aware and more focused on the long-term lease operating expense of a well. They're seeing higher rates of return the way that we are recommending to do this based on the science of what the rock says, then getting that early rush of seeing that oil. Because a lot of times when you see it early, you've got emulsions and you've got sand coming back, and you got to deal with both of those. And again, you're putting cost in that you don't need to if you'll just be patient.
So what I'm just seeing is that the transitions that happen, we've been brainwashed. We see the oil squirting way up in the air and everybody's celebrating right there. You know we hit a gusher, right?
Well, let's stop real quick. Not brainwashed.
Yeah.
We've been educated based on the process that we're using right now.
Exactly.
Right. That's not brainwashing. That's called learning.
But it's like it's a hurdle, your industry, that you're helping them to look at it from a fresh perspective. That's sound as far as all business processes. It
goes to the rule number one of our company is give trust, earn trust. We're asking for a lot of trust, and there's a risk there, right? And that's, again, if we were chemical salespeople and focused on the chemical sale, why would you trust that unless we're providing you with the prescriptive that's got a promise there? We fail to deliver our promise. Well, guess what? Nobody's going to trust us. And our reputation's been ruined. Reputation's everything, Steve.
Yeah.
So there's not any monetary reward that's a near term that is worth your reputation. And again, that's why we've gone back over and over again about what is our process? What are we doing? Because it's malpractice to rely on a set of protocols that when you run them in the laboratory do not predict and deliver the results that you expect in the field. It's malpractice, which is untrustworthy. And again, that's why we're constantly learning. We do not know it all. We are sharing our learnings with our customer, and we're learning from them. It's a desire and a must-have. And sometimes we have more knowledge because we've done more work. But in many times, there are some unbelievably great companies we're working with that have a huge amount of data and resource that we need to partner with, because we're going to both learn, number one, faster and get the results that we both want. And that makes you more of a partnership than a vendor.
So we're looking at data. And if we're looking at data together, where technology, I mean, Refined Completions, you've said several times, is a technology company.
Absolutely.
We're in these audits or these studies. They're drawing from a big data stack, or
that's right.
Yes,
we've got a large statistical in, right? Which means your predictions should be better as long as your model's not bad.
And so you're using AI to help inform those output, because you have such a large amount of data that you're able to detect patterns and connections that normally, experts may not see with their eyes or have the time to study the data closely enough.
Well, yeah, and and what's funny is historically we presented things in graphs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graphs are awesome, but what if if your rate overrun is too big, you're never going to see the anomalies, and that's where AI comes in. AI starts seeing, man, you've had a 1 part per million change over a 30-day period of a certain key indicator that you'd never see when you plot it. And you would not see as you're running through a data stack. It would just end up, running together. AI goes, hey, you need to look at this because this has been a consistent indicator, and there's a delta, a change. But AI doesn't know is a change good or bad. That's where we have to come in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where AI is really a great partner. It's not the end all. It's kind of like you taught me, Steve. If you don't, you need to ask good questions and get more clarity with AI. You're asking it of it instead of just putting in something that is not very thoughtful. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of the same thing with our process, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm seeing is it used to be let's pour this down a hole and let's see if it fixes what we're hoping it's going to fix. Mm-hmm. 2, why you have a patented patent process going on this. It's not just because you guys have a good idea and you just want some folks to let me show you. This is legit.
Absolutely. And that's, again, like we talked about, it's starting first, standing on universal laws, natural laws, and using those as our boundaries to say, hey, where we go from here based on this. I like to call them anchors. And the only time that you change from that anchor is if it was not the anchor you needed to be tied to for the understanding, because sometimes anchors just leave you stuck in the mud, but sometimes they save you in the storm. And so it's really, it's knowing, hey, what we're standing on here is relevant to the model that we're utilizing for prediction. And up to this point, we found no reason to believe that the law of equilibrium is not the one we should be standing on.
There's just, you guys are introducing I think the typical way is that the legacy way has not had this expectation. When I'm working with new processes, and when the light bulb goes on, I go, oh, I can have this expectation now. I didn't realize I could expect this. And so in a business, they have accounting processes. They have these decision-making processes. Why wouldn't you have this going on as well for this very critical aspect of birthing a profitable well?
Agreed. And there are companies that have really the best processes for what they understand right now. And sometimes we're just introducing a new understanding. Or, it's funny, we've got some companies we're working with where they're like, I've always seen it, but I never knew why. Now I know why. It's been that one little confirmation, right? And I think we talked about this one time. You get a red GMC truck, ATX. You don't ever notice any other red ATXs until you start driving yours. Same thing that happens is we don't see it until we see it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's good and bad.
We're finding a little lever in this prescription that's going to direct them with a to a more profitable well, especially over time, and reduce all sorts of maintenance and other invisible taxes on the other end. It reminds me of the story that, we're all familiar with Voyager 2, right? But there was a Voyager 1.
That's right.
And the reason we don't know about Voyager 1 is because there in the code, there was a space that wasn't put where it was supposed to be. And so over the long haul, it went off course. And that's where Voyager 2 came in, from that mistake. And I think that's what you're helping these wells do, is they're producing more over the long term by avoiding that little mistake that's going to be costly in the long part of the game. Good episode, Lloyd.
Thank you.
So if someone's listening and they're starting to see where maybe you fit in, or refined completions fits into their journey, they're wanting to dial in this process better, how they connect with you?
Go to our website and hit the more information button. They can send an email to me, lloyd.brown@refinedcompletions.com, and I'll direct them to our team member that is a guide, and they can go through any of the platforms, X, YouTube, or here on LinkedIn. So
what's that handle on LinkedIn and X?
Why wells fail.
That's right. That's the episode. He's Refined CL Lloyd B on X and LinkedIn. You can reach out there and connect.
You asked me a question I wasn't really ready to answer there.
I know, you got to get this down. He's walking down the street now.
You look like a rookie here at the end of the combo.
He's signing
Which I am. I'm a rookie. I'm just learning.
All right. That's another great episode, Lloyd, with Why Wells Fail.
Thanks, Steve.